The US economy isn't in a good place, but did you know it's gotten so bad that even mega brands in the retail industry are now cutting back on their spending by cancelling billions of dollars in orders? And it doesn't look to be getting any better with the winter season on the horizon. Stick around to find out the facts regarding these drastic measures. Over the last couple of months, there's been a significant scale back in the amount of goods that large retail companies are ordering for the upcoming winter season and beyond. Big retail players like Walmart, Home Depot, and others are getting ready for a slowdown in consumer spending, which they believe could result from a deep recession. And if there's one thing we know, it's that these mega brands don't exactly divulge the reason for their business moves until it's too late for the average man to act on it. To avoid you being in that situation, we've done the research, and here are some of our major findings. To start with, by cancelling or cutting billions of dollars in orders, these companies are basically preparing for a rough ride ahead. They're trying to avoid the risk of being stuck with a bunch of unsold goods that just sit around collecting dust. It's obvious that the economy is uncertain right now, so these businesses are getting ready for what could be a tough winter, with lower sales and fewer people shopping. During a recession, the economy takes a turn, usually with higher unemployment, less consumer spending, and even slowed business activity. Retailers are worried that with inflation, high interest rates, and the increasing costs for everyday essentials, people won't have the cash or the willingness to spend, especially on the things that aren't absolutely necessary. Because of this, stores are cutting back on orders, expecting sales to be lower than usual. Last time we saw something like this was back in 2022, when interest rates started climbing, forcing companies to pull back. However, this year it feels like there's something deeper going on, prompting these companies to scale back imports just as we approach the winter season. The retail industry has definitely shifted dramatically over the past few years. Not that long ago, major retailers were riding high, reporting record-breaking profits and scrambling to stock up on enough products to keep up with booming consumer demand. Fast forward to 2024 and the picture looks very different. Sales have slowed significantly, financial performance has fallen short of expectations, and now these companies are taking an unexpected turn, cancelling billions of dollars in orders. This move has experts and economists confused, especially with the holiday season just around the corner. Normally, this time of year is when consumer spending peaks and retailers need to have their shelves fully stocked to meet the demand. So cutting back on orders this much seems totally counterintuitive and even a bit strange. And so you need to know that these are not just average economic meltdown circumstances, not at all. The current economic climate is anything but stable, which makes it clear that there's something bigger at play behind these decisions. So what are these companies seeing in the economic forecast that the rest of us might not be picking up on? Well, for starters, Americans are facing the highest costs for essentials and services in recent history. Over the past few years, particularly since the global pandemic in 2020, prices on pretty much everything have gone up, but wages haven't done the same. The result? Consumer spending is reducing faster than most economists would expect at this time of year. In fact, winter retail sales are predicted to have their slowest growth since 2018. According to a recent forecast from the National Retail Federation, the largest retail trade group in the US, sales growth is expected to reduce by 3.5% compared to last year. This projection takes into account important economic factors like employment levels, wages, consumer confidence, disposable income, and consumer credit. Even though interest rates have recently gone down, the damage they've already caused to people's purchasing power is looking somewhat permanent. It's clear that the after effects of economic tightening are still putting a strain on American wallets. Take Walmart, for instance. According to data from Import Yeti, the retail giant shipped just 340,000 kilos of holiday goods into the US in the 12 months ending September 30th. That's way less than half of the 980,000 kilos they brought in during the same time last year. For even more context, in 2022, Walmart imported over 1.9 million kilos of holiday merchandise in that time frame. This steep decline just shows how seriously companies are adjusting their strategies in the face of weakened consumer demand and economic uncertainty. Charles Storr, Chief Investment Officer at CIS More Capital Management, pointed out that when retailers cut back on orders, it's a clear sign they're preparing for a significant drop in fourth quarter sales. This also means shoppers could be greeted by emptier shelves, with some inventory gaps remaining unfilled just as the holiday season kicks into gear. Some retail giants like Dollar General and Home Depot have already started dealing with a drop in consumer demand, which has hurt their sales and even led to store closures this year. Meanwhile, Walmart is doing its best to attract budget-conscious shoppers with discounts and deals. For example, the average price of toys at Walmart this season is $406, which is 10% lower than last year. But even with these price cuts, there's no guarantee it will be enough to kickstart a big spending spree. Retailers are once again facing the nightmare of being stuck with unsold goods, and this is because many consumers simply can't afford to splurge on non-essential items the way they once did. Executives recently pointed out that shoppers, especially those in lower income brackets, will feel more financially strained this holiday season than they did a year ago. Chris Raymond, Kohl's chief marketing officer, explained that the ongoing effects of high food prices and other essentials are eating away at people's savings. As a result, companies are looking to trim costs, including hiring fewer seasonal workers than last year. Retailers are bracing for lower revenue and tighter profit margins, largely due to lingering inflation and the burden of high consumer debt. So what's behind these drastic order cuts of nearly 50%? The answer might be simple, but it's definitely a tough pill to swallow. Companies are simply looking at the bigger picture. While a lot of people might wish that the worst of inflation is behind us, the truth is that its effects on how much Americans can spend will stick around for quite a while. A random analyst who works at Bankrate has pointed out that with limited ways to deal with rising costs, many lower-income Americans have been forced to take on debt just to cover the more expensive essentials. At the same time, credit card interest rates are climbing to near record highs, which means retailers aren't only focused on this winter season, they're also planning for the long run. It may sound extreme, but the reality is that it could take years for people's incomes to catch up with the cost of living, meaning this financial squeeze isn't something that's going away anytime soon. With the cost of basic necessities like housing, rent, and energy still rising, sales of non-essential items will likely continue to dip. An analysis by LendingTree revealed that 76% of Americans feel that inflation and the current economic climate are making it harder to cover their bills, and 40% say they're less able to afford their monthly expenses than they were a year ago. Sure, unemployment is low and the economy is growing and people are still spending, but the reality is that moderating inflation doesn't mean prices are coming down. It just means they're not increasing as quickly. For many, buying power has taken a hit, and even if your income has kept pace with inflation, it's still a struggle. Consumers definitely keep those high interest rates and stubborn inflation in mind, which makes them more careful and strategic with their spending. A recent poll by CNN showed that 36% of adults have had to pick up extra work just to make ends meet. Additionally, 69% of people are driving less and 68% have adjusted their grocery shopping habits to save money. It's clear that for many, making ends meet has become a real balancing act. So how are Americans supposed to support businesses when they can't spend like they used to? And that's the tough reality retailers and companies are dealing with right now. It's going to take years for many people to recover their financial footing, and that's why we're seeing big industry players pulling back, whether it's canceling orders or closing thousands of stores just to stay afloat during these uncertain times. Even if the economy slows down in the coming months, these setbacks can snowball. When businesses cut back, it often leads to more layoffs, and as more people lose their jobs, they spend even less. It's a vicious cycle that can contribute to an even deeper recession. And another potential weakness that could push the US into a severe recession comes from possible economic shifts after the presidential election. If the newly elected president follows through with a plan to impose a 10% tariff on nearly all imported goods and a 60% tariff on imports from China, it could have a significant impact. While the goal is to strengthen domestic industries, support American-made products, and reduce reliance on imports over the long term, experts warn that in the short term it could lead to even more inflation and push prices higher for consumers. And these tariffs might also drive up the cost of goods needed by industries like manufacturing, which could lead to companies reducing production or even shutting down operations. This would further slow down the economy. The big question now is whether the US economy has already been so damaged that it's beyond repair. Let's hope things don't get that bad, but the damage done so far has left many wondering just how much they can hold up. That's all for this video on major retailers are cancelling billions in orders as they anticipate a deep recession this winter. What do you think about these strategic business moves, and what's your take on the economic state of the nation? Let us know in the comments section. Enjoy our other videos.